I'm Jay Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the retcons of comics' greatest superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Jay and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X books that come out each week.
This week we've got the books of January 18th and 25th, 2017. Let's do this. First up, we have last week's book, All New X-Men number 17. Written by Dennis Hopeless, with pencils by Mark Bagley, inks by Andrew Hennessy, and colors by Nolan Woodard. This is my hands-down favorite IVX tie-in so far.
It was a really good one.
It's a really good one. It's a really good one-shot, and honestly, it's shaped the way I want tie-ins to be shaped. It stands alone really well. You don't need to be following the big crossover, the big event series to follow it. It's a great story. It's the kind of story that Hopeless and Bagley do best, which is really, really character-driven and personal, with still a lot of pretty flashy, spectacular fight scenes. Mm-hmm. Man, I gotta say, IVX, one of the things that it's giving me, cynical as I may be, is a huge number of, like, let's go X-Men moments, where it's the entire team, all of the teams together diving into something, and you can almost hear the music swelling behind them.
Well, and I think part of that is because we've just seen so little of that ever since Secret Wars. We've had the X team split before with, like, for instance, Schism, Wolverine's team, Cyclops'
we haven't
team.
seen much of that in a long time.
But they're even almost more fractured now. I mean, there's Storm's people, there's the kids, there's Uncanny, there's the various solo characters. Like, there's very little cohesion. I mean, in theory, Extraordinary has a ton of characters, but we see so few of them that it just feels like we have these tiny squads operating independently.
So this is an issue that is all about Iceman and his new gentleman friend, the aptly named Romeo, who is an Inhuman. Now, if you're thinking that this pairing, especially with that highly allegorical name, is set up for tragedy, you're wrong. And that's technically a spoiler, but I'm going to say that because I think that's important. I've gotten to the point where I am really suspicious of queer relationships that happen in context of big events because they almost always end with the character dying. I mean, this is an intense trope, and this doesn't. And that's really, really important to me. I've talked a lot about, my feelings about Iceman's coming out and how deeply invested I am, especially in the adult version of that, or the adult end of that narrative. But man, this story gave me a lot of feels.
Yeah, and I think what it also does very well is it gives us something that we really need in a big event like IVX. It shows us the human cost, or at least the human emotional impact. Because,
or just the humanity with two non-human groups.
Well, we have Bobby figuring out that just at the beginning of this amazing relationship that is his first so many things, that he's going to have to basically destroy the culture of his new boyfriend. And so seeing the book cut back and forth between, Romeo and Bobby having these really cute, amazing, happy dates.
They play laser tag.
They do play laser tag. I fully approve. I was a big laser tag junkie back in the day. 831OS7 was my member number. I still remember that.
Does Pirates Cove even exist anymore?
Maybe?
I'm sure someone's going to get back to us on that.
Probably. The one in Sarasota specifically. Common name. But anyway.
Before it was like the crappy burned out cars when it was like awesome and there was a tower.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
But yes, so it cuts between, these amazing, wonderful, cute dates and Bobby hearing this briefing about what's going on and the consequences. And you can just see the conflict on his face. Bagley illustrates that very well. But the writing also sells it. The context and the buildup really sell it. And we're reminded that war really sucks.
It also has one of the best visual and physical allegories in an X book. I'm not going to spoil what that is, and it's subtle. I didn't catch it till my second time through.
Yeah, we just found it while we were going through.
It is really damn cool. I want to end this review with a direct appeal to Dennis Hopeless. Dennis, we love you. You've been on the show. You're going to be on the show live at Emerald City Comic Con. Oh yeah, that's happening with Dennis Hopeless and Charles Soule. But we love you. I know teenage relationships end, and it's okay if this relationship ends. But if it ends in tragedy, I will never forgive you. Never. Never.
Our first book of this week is Inhumans vs. X-Men number 3, written by Charles Soule and Jeff Lemire, with art by Javier Garron, colors by Andres Mosa and J. David Ramos. And yeah, it's a totally new art team, it's a totally new feel, and the crossover remains pretty good.
I think this might be the first issue where the line art won me over more than the colors. I mean, these guys are good, don't get me wrong, but they're no David Curiel.
Didn't he only do like one issue of IVX?
But it was so good.
It was very good.
It's like the thing in the Rocketeer with Peavy. No sense dating anyone after her.
After David Curiel.
Yeah, well,
Are we now shipping David Curiel, the colorist, and Peavy from the Rocketeer?
No, we're shipping David Curiel and the colors on IVX.
Oh, well, okay. I kind of like it the other way,
It's not
too.
really a ship.
Anyway, so yeah, last time we just had a great big fight in IVX number 2, and that was, fine. It was perfectly solid. But right now we have the tides turning. We have the X-Men about to execute their plan and underestimating the younger Inhumans and them basically turning it around. So on the one hand, that does mean we do see the X-Men kind of getting their asses kicked by a couple of kids. But a story like this has to work that way. You can't just have, one team steamroll the other, and you can't have things happen as expected.
I'd just like to put out there that if Cyclops were around, he would totally have accounted for this. I feel like so many relatively amateur mistakes were made.
It's very true, yeah. Especially, Forge getting outsmarted. Well, I guess practical smarts have never really been Forge's thing.
No.
But even so.
So this issue has, this series has been rotating artists because it's a series that's coming out fast. And one of the things I really like about that is that we've gotten to see each artist very much play to their strengths. We saw Laniel Francis Yu on those amazing Emma Frost scenes. Here we have Javier Garron just having an absolute blast with the whimsical and the fantastic in ways that I think have been missing from a lot of X series recently.
Yeah, I mean, we've said before in the podcast that one of the coolest things in terms of figuring out like what an artist's style is seeing them draw either Limbo or Warlock. And so we don't have Warlock around here. Unfortunately, I miss him. But we do have Limbo, and especially after seeing, I believe it was Ken Lashley in Uncanny X-Men recently.
Yeah, super lackluster Limbo.
His Limbo was it was fine. It just didn't. It wasn't
boring.
Interesting. Yeah.
No, and Limbo should be interesting.
And so seeing Bagley just turn it into this like.
This isn't Bagley.
Or Garron turn it into this this sort of madcap hellscape. Similarly, getting a chance to see The World.
I was about to say, his version of The World is delightful.
The World being like Phantom X's weird little like enclosed terrarium world.
So I realized looking at it, you know what? It's very Milkman Conspiracy.
From Psychonauts? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the geometry of it.
The actual geometry of it.
Mm-hmm. With, a bunch of weird, like, fish and stuff.
And it's delightful and whimsical and weird and uses the page structure to just great effect.
Mm-hmm. So it's a fun one. I mean, we're seeing some cool takes on characters. We're seeing an exciting series of fights that go in unexpected directions. This issue, it's certainly a chapter. It's not like a single standalone issue I would present as here's what comics are about. But, IVX continues to be engaging when the premise, honestly, we were all very skeptical about. I certainly was.
I remain skeptical about the premise.
Well, regardless, perhaps I should say the idea of it being any good was something I was very skeptical of.
Yeah, I remain skeptical about the premise. The actual books, I'm enjoying the hell out of.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. I mean, we do know that there are both Inhumans and X-Men's books. Coming out of this, so clearly like most people are doing okay.
Well, or at least both groups continue to exist.
And many of their members. For right now, it's a fun ride. I recommend it. Finally, we have Extraordinary X-Men number 18, written by Jeff Lemire with art by Victor Ibanez and Andrea Sorrentino and colors by J. David Ramos and Marcello Maiolo. A lot of fun names to say on this book.
Well, and two creative teams spanning two books, because we've got some Old Man Logan flashbacks, and for those, the Old Man Logan creative team comes in.
It's so great, yeah. So this is, of course, an Inhumans versus X-Men tie-in, and it kind of does what all of them have done so far, which is little standalone stories that expand on a small event that happened in the main series and give us greater insight into the X characters who were involved.
This one, honestly, reading this before IVX number 3 left me really annoyed at IVX number 3.
Oh, I read it after, and it worked out pretty well. I always read the main event first, and then whatever tie-ins come out the same week.
I read them in whatever order they show up in our Marvel account.
Without standards, we're animals, Jay. Animals. Animals!
But fancy animals.
Fancy animals, that's true. So, yes, we focus here largely on Forge with some Old Man Logan and some Storm as well. And that's great to see because he is so often a neglected character. He's been in a lot of books, but he's usually just sort of very backgroundy. Honestly, I think since Life Death, he hasn't really gotten the focus he needed, even when he was a major character of the books, just because we didn't get inside his head as much. One
of Forge's strongest and most enduring characteristics is his moral grayness and his general sense of detachment from world affairs. Mm-hmm. That, I think, is part of what makes him such an interesting focal character here. He's someone who's much more inclined to turn inward than outward, and much more. I mean, he's pretty chaotic neutral.
I mean, it really varies, but sometimes, yeah.
And here he's examining not only a lot of his personal stuff in his life, and he's been through some intense stuff. But also a lot of the issue is in context of a conversation he has with Old Man Logan about whether he had a counterpart in Old Man Logan's timeline, and if so, what that counterpart is like.
I really love this part because you expect it to be some big soap opera hashing out of, let's talk about this woman we're both into, because they're both sort of into Storm.
Oh, they're both super into Storm, but everyone's into Storm.
I'm into Storm.
Again, as Baby Jean Grey establishes, it's Storm. Everyone's into Storm.
True. But yeah, you expect it to be that, and the book certainly leads up to that. And no, it's just Logan talking about Forge in his timeline with this wonderful cut-in from Andrea Sorrentino in this glorious, Mad Max Fury Road homage, talking about the Rhinos gang, and their weird, beat-up old dune buggy monstrosities. It's a really wonderful spread. I kind of want a poster of it.
I love the subverted love triangle. I mean, that's something that I enjoy a lot pretty much anytime it happens. It's one of the things that I love most about Agent Carter is how consistently it does that. I like how it works here. I like that Forge's big concern, the big thing he'd been avoiding Logan about, was that question of what he was like in that world. But what I really love about this issue, the thing that makes it and that ties it all together for me, is that we never find out whether Logan is telling the truth. Logan is a character who could quite credibly be lying to Forge, telling him what he needs to hear going into battle, trying to convince him to aspire to his better nature. He also might reasonably be telling the truth, and I don't think we're ever going to know which. And I really hope that we don't, because that ambiguity is lovely, and I really appreciated it.
It's really lovely, yeah. What's also lovely is an aspect of that love triangle that does get touched on, which is the sort of estranged nature of Storm and Forge. I mean, they were lovers way back in the day during Life Death. There were hints of that here and there over the years.
Well, it's followed them, and it's followed their relationship a lot over the years. It's something that I think Greg Pak most recently addressed fairly directly in his Storm ongoing.
That was good,
the Forge issue. That was really good. But it's something that especially has defined Forge over the years. And
so actually getting some resolution to that here in a way that I didn't expect. There's a really excellent page turn.
And we're going to get to that when we talk about the panel of the week.
We are, yeah. But just the way that's handled in terms of subverting expectations and just in terms of execution is wonderful. So yeah, getting a chance to look at Forge, to look inside his head, to play with a dynamic we haven't seen much of, namely him and not just Logan, but specifically Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
This is a stellar issue. Extraordinary X-Men is just such a bizarre series because over the course of this run, of Jeff Lemire's Extraordinary X-Men run, I've seen some of my least favorite X-Men issues in recent history and some of my favorite issues in recent history. And it's sort of a toss-up every time, although I will say there's...
No, I think what we've seen consistently is that Lemire nails the one-shots and...
I was about to say exactly that.
Ongoing.
Yeah, so in terms of just hey, let's do this slice-of-life character development thing, awesome. I want to see Lemire do more of that because he totally excels at it. As for this book, I don't know. It's going to continue a little bit in X-Men Gold soon. I'm really glad to see it developing more of an identity of its own before it does. So I'm glad to see that Extraordinary X-Men is going to mean something, not just that one X book that came out for a couple of years there.
Whether or not you're picking up the series, it's worth picking up this issue, especially if you're a Forge fan. It's a really strong character study, and it's honestly just a really strong comic in general. So that's 3 out of 3. Miles, what's our issue of the Fortnight?
Issue of the Fortnight was a tough one because we have some very strong books here, but eventually it came down to this issue of All New X-Men. The character work, contrasting that level of humanity with that level of conflict and great big overarching event. The sheer amount of adorable dating teenage boys. That sounded it's kind of weird when I say it like that.
Yeah, it does.
But anyway,
no, but you get the idea. It's deeply heartwarming.
It really is, yeah. Hopeless has always excelled at character work.
They're like baby ducks.
Are they?
Kind of. They're sort of wide-eyed, and sometimes they're in water.
Well, I can't argue with either of those. But anyway, it's solid. Hopeless is wonderful on X books. I'm so glad he's going to be back for the Jean Grey series. And Bagley, nice work, just emoting the hell out of everyone. That said, what is our favorite panel?
Our panel of the week comes from Extraordinary X-Men number 18. Now, we talked about the scene with Storm and Forge, and this is a moment coming out of a page turn that, given tropes and given expectations, would often lead into a kiss. And I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about the body language in this panel, because you can get a lot of story out of this just looking at it. Forge's face versus Storm's, the directions they're looking, Forge's obvious shock, the fact that he clearly doesn't quite know what to do with his hands. But the biggest factor, and I think the coolest one, is how she's leaned in. Because when two people are hugging in a comic, they're usually close together, and their feet are usually close together, so they're just leaned in together. But this is a hug that starts with two people far apart, deliberately giving each other a personal space bubble. And the spontaneity of the gesture really comes across in the way that Storm has to lean in, and kind of the desperation of it. This is, I mean, I gotta say, we were talking about this as a moment that really resonated for us both, and sort of the attempts to feel out and reestablish that kind of thing in a, formally romantic relationship. So yeah, so that I can't deny that hit some personal notes, but it's also just really, really exceptionally good storytelling in a single image.
That's it for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, but think it would be way better without our faces, check out our podcast, Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up on Sunday at explainthexmen.com, also on iTunes, Stitchers, and Google Play. And this week, we've got, I think, our third ever giant-size winter special.
Indeed we do, and it is chock full of stuff. In addition to covering the very strange New Mutants Wolverine story, Reign of Terra, which was a whole lot of fun.
We have nerdcore rapper Kid Apocalypse joining us to talk about rap, Evan Sabanor, and what it means to play a character on stage in that kind of context.
We also have some Dennis Hopeless stuff. Most excitingly, in my opinion, the finally at long last revealed unexplicated version of his explanation of the Noodle Incident.
And folks, this is stuff that has not been in the comics.
You'll hear it here first.
That's right. Unless you were at our party at Rose City.
You'll hear it here second. But anyway.
That podcast, these video reviews, and everything at explainthexmen.com come to you courtesy of our Patreon subscribers. We're an entirely listener-supported project. Those are the folks who keep us on the air, and entirely ad-free. And if you want to join their ranks, you can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching it. I should also mention, while I am shilling, that we have a sale going on in our TeePublic store right now. All the shirts there are, I think, $14. For t-shirts, everything is discounted. We'll stick a link to that in the text below this video.
Indeed. In the meantime, we will see you next week for more Inhumans fighting more X-Men, possibly for all time.
I do want to point out that one of those Inhumans is named Inferno, so technically Inferno, still going. Hi, that's a truck. I'm gonna save this as a tag.